بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى صحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we'll get started. Sorry about the late start for some technical issues. So, for those of you who are just joining us, we are reading from the book Al-Fath al-Rabbani wal-Fath al-Rahmani by Shaykh Abd al-Jilani radiyallahu anhu wa ardah. And this is our third session. And if you're just joining us, this is a book that talks about suluk or tazkiyat an-nafs, about improving one's soul, as the soul is the bearer of who we actually are. And this is lub al-Islam, this is the essence of Islam, or the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In other words, for us to be the best human beings and to live up to our potential as the best human beings that we could possibly be. So we come to the third discourse, because it's a set of 62 discourses, and this one is titled Fi Adam Tamanni al-Ghina. And we can phrase that in another way. In Arabic, it literally means to not desire wealth in particular, or to not wish for wealth. And there's a distinction that's to be made between those things that are circumstances in life, what's called al-aqsam, or what's called al-rizq, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us as our circumstances in life, and that will mean who your parents are, and that will mean where you were born, and that will mean your ethnicity, and that will mean the language that you speak, and it also will mean how much wealth you have or how little wealth that you have. So all of these things constitute our qisam, or our qismat in life. And for one to demand from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you be taken out of one particular set of circumstances and put into another should only be done, as Shaykh Abd mentions later in this particular discourse, if it's not your nafs that's asking for it, it's not your ego and your appetite and your desire for pleasure and your desire for ease that's asking for that, but it's something about your heart that's asking for that. So something that's a deeper, more penetrative aspect of who you are, of your soul, namely your ruh, or your sir, or your qalb. So the spiritual heart then feels an overwhelming sort of inclination or inspiration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is a particular route that one should seek. And the way that one of the ways we can distinguish between our more whimsical and appetites of caprice, and that which is something which is a sadiq or true aspiration and inspiration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is what they say mizan al-shara. So we look at the sharia, we look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designated to be of the 5 categories. So certain things are obligatory, certain things are in the realm of sunnah or recommended, certain things are in the realm of disliked or reprehensible, and then certain things are in the realm of forbidden. And then there's a wide area, probably the widest area of all human action, that is in the merely permissible. So it's in the merely permissible when we start talking about things like zuhud and wara, when we talk about things renunciation or minimalistic approach to the dunya and possessions, or wara, or to be scrupulous in one's dealings and one's actions and how one procures one's income. All of that really applies to what's in the large area of the permissible, because that which is forbidden or haram, there's really no discussion about that. You don't consider yourself to be zahid if you're avoiding the haram. Zuhud is going to be in things that are primarily halal, but you're having a more methodological approach to how you partake of the halal. So this approach that has been kind of studied and has been documented and has been practiced by many of the great people of this ummah, the people of Allah, we call them Ahlullah, or Awliya, Salihin, and Muqarrabeen. This general category of people, they take a kind of more, as I said, methodological approach to how they practice their deen. And so there's no inkar, there's no condemnation of people who choose not to do that. So generally speaking, if you stay within the halal and you avoid the haram, and you apply your iman as best as you can in the nawazil, in the things that happen to you, their circumstances in life, then you're a good person, and you're from al-abrar, right? You're from the righteous people of this ummah, and you will be, inshallah, a dweller of paradise, and you will drink from the fountain of our Prophet ﷺ. Sharbatan hani'atan la tadma'u min ba'diha abada. You will have all of that, inshallah. But for those who Allah has chosen, and it is Allah's choice, who are from Ahl al-Inaya or Ahl al-Khusus, those people that Allah SWT has chosen, who are not just going to think about just the mere haram and the halal, but they're also going to be the standard bearers of the deen. They're the ones who are going to carry this deen forward from one generation to the next. They are going to be warathat al-anbiya wal-awliya wal-salihin. They are the heirs of the knowledge of the prophets and of the scholars and of the awliya and of the righteous saints. So that group of people will have a different approach. They have to be more stringent in the way that they go practicing the deen. So this book is kind of a manual, so to speak, or an admonition for those people who think they're on that particular path, or trying to be on that particular path, or aspire to be on that particular path. So it's not really generally directed towards the laity or the awam, as it were. But and I use that word kind of a little bit hesitantly, because we should not have this sort of hierarchical, elitist point of view. I'm studying this book, al-Rabbani, and so that makes me from the elite of the ummah, and so forth. Nobody knows anyone else's place with God. Nobody knows anyone else's maqam. Nuhsin al-dhan bin nas. One of the sheikhs of our shuyukh, Shaykh Muhammad al-Hashimi al-Tilmsani, he was once walking with a group of his students, his disciples, and they passed upon a man who was a drunk in the street. And the man comes up to the sheikh and he says, "Oh, sheikh, I just, will you allow me to kiss your hand, because I know who you are, or you look like a person of salah, a person of righteousness, and I want to kiss your hand." And then the sheikh responded back to him, "No, actually, I should be the one not just kissing your hand, I should be kissing your feet." And so, the man kind of jabra bi khatiri, and he felt good about that, and he walked away. But the students were left confused. They said, "We understand that you want to, make the man feel good about himself, but didn't you go a little bit overboard? He's a drunk, so why would you say for him to kiss your feet, you to kiss his feet?" So the sheikh, he said, "It's actually because he came up to us and he had husn al-dhan fina. He had a good opinion of us, and he thought we were of the caliber that our hands should be kissed. And that's something that's beautiful, and that's very pure, and that's pure, very innocent. We looked at him and we saw a drunk, and we saw someone who's going to annoy us or bother us. So he had a better approach to us than we did to him. So he truly is better than we are." And that's the attitude of the true warathat al-anbiya. They don't propose for themselves a type of spiritual elitism or hierarchy or holier than thou, sanctimonious attitude over others. And anything that they have, they say, هذا من الله سبحانه وتعالى, هذا بفضل الله من غير استحقاق مني. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon me, He's favored upon me, and it's not because of something I deserved or something that I did, but all of these good deeds, all of these acts are alamat. They're all signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with me, not that I should seek recompense and seek reward because I'm doing something, then I get something back. So going back to the text, so he's talking about how should we look at our circumstances. And so, as I said earlier, do not seek to change the circumstance that you're in. So even if you're in a state of wealth, for example, and ease, and you say to yourself, well, how can I be very spiritual with all of this, material wealth that I find myself in? How can I find a way to God? I must necessarily then renounce all of it and sell everything and live and maybe perhaps even beg in the streets so that I can be a person of this higher spiritual caliber. And that would be ill-advised to do, because one, you didn't make the khiyarah for Allah. وَمَا كَانَ لَهُمُ الْخِيرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. You didn't make tafweed, you didn't assign complete agency to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who is the one who put you in that particular situation? Let's say you inherited something, or you were born into wealth, or you came by it, or you worked for it, whatever it may be. It's actually all the same. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gave you that. So now you are at a certain maqam, you're a certain place, and you have to give the rights of that maqam. And the rights of that station of yours in life is, there are duties and responsibilities now that are upon you that may not be on someone else who is not in a similar situation as you are. So Shaykh Abd al-Qadir, he says repeatedly in this discourse, he said, وَوَاسِي الْفُقَرَاء. Those who have been given wealth, they don't see it as their possession. They don't say like Qarun, إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُ بِعِلْمٍ مِّنْ عِنْدِي. I have been given this out of my own actions and out of my own knowledge and out of my own prowess, but rather they see it as something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed and bestowed them with. And He did that so that they may be a rightful distributor of that wealth, someone who can pass it on and distribute it in the best way possible thereafter. And so they don't see it as actually theirs, but actually as belonging to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now they have been assigned the responsibility of passing it on to the people who are mustahiqeen, those who are deserving of it. So I just want to read some excerpts of this that be more illustrative. So he says, لا تتم احفظ ثمرك يحمد أمرك أقنع بهذا القدر الذي معك ولا تطلب زيادة عليه كلما يعطيك الحق عز وجل بسؤالك فيكون كدرا وبغضة قد جربت هذا إلا أن يؤمر العبد من حيث قلبه بالسؤال فإذا أمر بالسؤال بورك فيما سأل وأزيلت الأقدار عنه وليكن أكثر سؤالك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة فاقنع بهذا فحسب لا تتخير على الله عز وجل. So he says, do not desire or wish for wealth, because it could be the reason for your destruction, your halak. And you who are sick of the heart, or even sick of the body, rather, do not necessarily desire for afiyah, for good health, because perhaps it is going to be the reason also for your destruction. So people hear that and they say, how is that possible? If I'm sick, I want to be physically healthy. Shouldn't I ask for physical health? Of course, we ask for physical health. But remember that each maqam, and we're going to keep using that word, each station that you occupy in life. So if you're right now in a station of sickness, there are certain etiquettes and adab that go with it. And perhaps you are actually doing quite well with that. Maybe you have a chronic disease, or maybe you've been in an accident, or maybe la qaddar Allah, you have something that is life-threatening. There's a certain maqam and adab, and maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has inspired you to have the proper etiquette and adab with that. And generally speaking, most people are able to maintain their etiquette with God better when they feel they need God, rather when they feel they don't need Him. وإذا مسه السوء فإنه ذو دعاء عريض, as the Quran says, Surah Fussilat. If something evil comes to them, then ذو دعاء عريض, right? Then they make a lot of dua and they supplicate and they implore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because now the need feels immediate for them. And the adverse, which is if you're in a state of bliss, in a state of ease, in a state of wealth, it's generally speaking, not for everybody, but generally speaking, it's more difficult to maintain that same type of feeling of absolute need and what's called ittirar, right? That there's no way, there's no other path except to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So most people are not able to maintain that. when their maqam should be a maqam of shukr, when they should have gratitude and be thankful. Rather, they usually forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أعرض بجنبه, right? They turn away and they do other things, or they do like Qarun did and say it's all me, it's all about me, or Sahab al-Jannatain, the man of the two gardens in Surah Al-Kahf, and who said, if I were to go back to my Lord, I would not find better than my two gardens, which is not just kufran in ni'mah, it's not just denial of blessing, but it's denial of God. So that is a maqam that's not easy. So perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أشغلك بالمرض, he kept you busy with the sickness that you're in, and in a way it's preserving your deen. And that sounds very, very counterintuitive, but it's quite possible. And for some other people, if they were in a state of illness or chronic disease, then that would be difficult for them too. It may not be a way to preserve their deen, and they do better when they have ease and they have comfort, and then they're a more grateful servant. So our husn dhan billah, that our good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in that whatever situation that we're at, we have to be thinking about what is being asked of me. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seek from me or desire from me in this particular state? So that's why he said, if you seek afiyah, be careful, because it could also be the reason for your destruction. Kun aqilan, right? Use your intellect, be smart, preserve the fruits, right, of your spiritual journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then your matter will be praised. Be contented with that which you have been given in terms of material comforts and circumstances, and don't necessarily seek more than that. Why don't seek more than that? Well, why are you seeking more? Are you seeking more because it just would be nicer to have a bigger house, or live in a more affluent neighborhood, or to drive a nicer car? Or are you seeking because you're thinking about, well, there are many people in need. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to put me in a position where I can help people, then this is what I would do. And that could be something that comes from a better place. It could be something coming from the heart, which he's going to mention in a second. So he says, everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you, by your question alone, by you seeking it, right, without seeking Allah's command or desire within that thing you're asking for, could end up as something that's going to be harmful to you. So if you ask for a particular thing and you don't know what the outcome of that thing will be, and you're just asking for it because you have an appetite for it, this is the thing we have to be careful about. That's why they said, min adab dua, from amongst the etiquettes of the supplication, is that you do it with this word called at-tafweed. And tafweed means to put complete agency with God when you are making a supplication. So if it's something that is not that Allah does not require from you, so you don't have to do tafweed if you're asking for Allah to help you fulfill your duties as a Muslim. If to do the 5 prayers, or to fast Ramadan, or even ask him that you may be able to go to Hajj, that necessarily doesn't need tafweed. But if you're thinking about where to live, who to marry, what career track I should seek, then these are the type of things which are in the realm of the permissible, but we don't know where they're going to lead to. Where they're going to lead to is min ilm al-ghayb, right? Is from the unknown, and the only one who knows the unknown or the unseen is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So who's in a better position to determine that for you? Yourself, or should it be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So we leave it to God, we leave it to Allah. So the adab then would be, give me this particular thing, if in your infinite knowledge you know that it's going to be better for me and my deen and my ajil and my ajil, both in the near term and in the long term. And long term means the next life. And not just to say those things, but also to feel it in your heart and to be penetrative in your heart. So your su'al, right, then your question should be something that should be done with Allah. And then Shaykh Abd al-Qadir, he mentions his own experience. He said, قَدْ جَرَّبْتُ هَذَا إِلَّا أَنْ يَأْمُرُ الْعَبْدُ مِنْ حَيْثُ قَلْبِي بِالسُّؤَالِ. So he said, I have tried this, and we know from the seerah, from the biography of Shaykh Abd al-Qadir al-Jilani, that he spent many, many days and perhaps even years kind of just subsisting on very basic things, and he spent a lot of time in the desert, and for a very long time people didn't know him. So there was kind of a period of suluk and wayfaring and ijtihad and mujahadat, and he comes out. Some of these gems that he talks about is because he lived through them, he experienced them. So he said, I've tried this. He said, unless that you are commanded from your heart with the question, right, with the supplication that you're seeking, then if that's the case, then the matter of your supplication will be blessed for that which you have asked for, and then anything of the aqdar, right, anything that will corrupt that which you're seeking, or the matter which you're seeking, it will be removed. So that's why he said, وَلْيَكُنْ أكثر سؤالك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. And this is also one of the du'as of the Prophet ﷺ. So make it that most of your supplication is al-afu, right, that Allah pardons you, wal-afiyah, right, which is to have well-being, both physical, spiritual, and otherwise, wal-mu'afah ad-da'imah, right, and then the extended well-being, which is into the next life, fi dini wa dunya wal akhirah, in your deen and in the dunya and in the akhirah. So this is one of those dua that's shamil, right? And every believer should have kind of a litany of this type of ad'iyah ash-shamila, these comprehensive dua that kind of covers everything. So that's one of them. Another one of the Prophet ﷺ, Allahumma atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar. Allah give us the good of this life and then good of the next life. Wa qina adhab an-nar, and keep us away from the hellfire, or give us protection from the hellfire. So those the tafweed that we were mentioning earlier, right, the putting agency in Allah is already kind of built into it. So the words themselves display that, because you're asking, you're saying the good of this life and the next life, or you're saying health and health and well-being and afu and Allah pardon you. These are all very comprehensive, and it's understood from the words themselves that there is tafweed, that there is putting agency in God, versus a type of supplication where you say, oh Allah, I want to have to live in this particular neighborhood because these people are really good for my deen, and please make it happen. And that's a good sentiment, but don't forget, either if you say it or if you feel it in your heart, with the stipulation or with the qualification, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in your knowledge that is complete, that is unbroken, that is غير متجدد, that Allah doesn't come to know things, Allah knows things as they are and before they are. If in your knowledge you know this thing to be good for me, then make it easy for me, facilitate it for me. And if you know in your knowledge that it's not going to be good for me, then keep me away from it. And that's why they say facilitation is a sign of permission. So the thing that you're seeking, if it's facilitated, right, if you're finding that it's getting facilitated to be done, and you don't have to really go through that many hoops for it to come about, then it's a sign of idhin. It's a sign from permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are He intends and wants you to go this particular route. And then the opposite is true as well. So lack of facilitation, right, when they say maqamak haythu aqamak, that your maqam is where Allah has established you, if that establishment in that particular place is no longer sustainable. And what I mean by place, it could be a physical place, it could be a place of work, it could be a particular company that you're keeping, whatever. If it's no longer established, right, there's no iqama anymore, then that's a sign of permission from Allah that He wants you to go somewhere else. And then they define, and Ibn Ata al-Secondary talks about this in some of the hikam, the aphorisms, what is a sign of iqama? That you're able to practice your deen and you're able to sustain your dunya, right, your life, and you're able to do both of them in the particular place that you're in, then that is a sign that you should continue, right? And man thabata nabat, and whoever plants themselves firmly, right, in a place, nabat, then it will grow. But if you're always looking, the grass is greener on the other side, and it's always going to be this particular place is better, and you never really quite establish yourself either in a relationship, or relationship could be with friends or a spouse or a teacher, or a neighborhood, and you're just waiting, kind of, and تترصد الفرص, يعني you're waiting for the next opportunity that may be better. That indication of lack of commitment means that I think there's a little bit of سوء الظن بالله, or a lack of husn الظن بالله. There's a lack of having a good opinion of God, because you're just kind of jumping around from one place to the next, and we have a good opinion of Allah. He's put me here for a reason, and that reason I may be able to figure out, I may not figure out. But one of the signs Allah will give me to know that I'm in the right place is if I'm established in that place. I practice my deen, I pray the 5 prayers, I have a steady income, or enough of income that I'm living, and I don't have difficulties in that particular aspect, relatively speaking. Then all of those things are an indication. مقامك حيث أقامك. So he says, أقنع بهذا فحسب لا تتخير على الله عز وجل. So be contented with this, فحسب. ولا تتخير على الله عز وجل. Do not then try to make a choice more than the choice that Allah has made for you, because that is the choice that He has left for you. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly desires from us is that we go to Him, that we see nothing in the kawn, we see nothing in creation. There's no fa'al, right? هو فعال لما يريد. There's no enactor of things in creation except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wants us to come to that conclusion. And we can come to that conclusion either by the way of ni'am, of blessings, and the door of shukr, or we can come to that way by niqam, by difficulties and by trials and by tribulations, by ibtila, and then we go by the door of faqr and sabr, and those two go together, of a feeling of complete neediness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and patience with the trials and tribulations. So you can also be, the shukr can also take you to faqr. So your gratitude also can you can arrive at the conclusion that none of this is mine, I didn't do anything to deserve it, and what Allah has given me is completely a bestowal from Him without any sort of entitlement on my behalf, and that means I have nothing to begin with, and all that I have is from God, so I should go to Him. So I'll move to another excerpt that I outlined here. He says, لا تشكو من الخالق إلى الخلق بل اشكو إليه هو الذي يقدر وأما غيره فلا من كنوز البر كتمان السر والمصائب والأمراض والصدقات تصدق بيمينك واجتهد ألا تعلم به شمالك احذر من بحر الدنيا فقد غرق فيه خلق كثير ما ينجو منه إلا أحد الخلق هو بحر عميق يغرق الكل غير أن الله عز وجل ينجي منه من يشاء من عباده كما ينجي المؤمنين يوم القيامة من النار لأن الكل يعبرون عليها وينجي الله من يشاء من عباده قال الله عز وجل وإن منكم إلا واردها كان على ربك حتما مقضيا. He said, do not complain about the Khaliq, about the Creator, to the Khalq. Do not complain about your Creator to His creation. Balishku ilay, rather bring the complaint to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One might wonder, well, who does that? Who complains about God to people, to their friends? Oh, you believe God did this or He did that. People don't usually say it like that. They don't phrase it like that. More likely, they complain about their circumstances, right? And some of the ulama, their mantra or their banner was La shikaya wa la hikaya. No complaints, and not even hikaya, and not even tell the story, because there's different ways to kind of register a complaint and evoke sympathy from people for your particular circumstances. Sometimes it comes right out as a complaint. Oh, can you believe that? Like, I just lost my job, or you can believe this, or you can believe that. So you're trying to elicit a response from people. And sometimes it could be hikayah, right? Sometimes it be you're just like telling a story, then in the middle of the story, you inject or put in that particular piece of information that you're seeking some sympathy about, and then you register as a complaint. And what you're doing most of the time is kind of seeking a validation from people to, say like, look at me and validate me. This is pretty bad. Tell me it's bad because that's the way I feel about it, and that sort of thing. So that's a very normal kind of human response to difficult situations, and people they need to vent it and they need to get it out. But the most that people can do for you is just kind of try to empathize, and they don't really have any power to get you out of that situation. The only one who does is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he said, هو الذي يقدر. Allah is the one who has the power and the ability. So if you have an issue, bring it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A beautiful example of that is our Prophet ﷺ after Ta'if, and he went there and they threw rocks at him and they practically ran him out of town until he retreated to Bustan Addas, to a garden of that the young Christian boy who later became Muslim, Addas, was the keeper there. And there, that's when he did his very famous supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أشكو إليك ضعف قوتي وقلة حيلتي وهواني على الناس. I complain or I bring my shakwa to you, Allah, not to anyone else, to my lack of strength and my lack, and this is the Prophet ﷺ being obviously humble, my lack of ability and hawani ala nas, and how people, I'm hayyin to them. They didn't really give me a lot of respect when I walked in there and that sort of thing. So bring that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't be afraid. Don't be reticent with God. You speak to Him. Bring your issues to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He hears you. Don't ever think that He doesn't hear you. Because He says, Ud'uni astajib lakum. Call upon me and I will answer. So His answer is definitely He hears you. He hears you even if it remains in your heart and you never even say two words about it. Allah still hears that. And He hears you even if you never ask, even if you never seek. The maqam of Ibrahim, alayhi salam, Abraham, that he mentions later on here, it was one of Hasbi ilmuhu bihali an su'ali. I don't need to ask because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of my state and my situation. And so that suffices me, and I don't actually have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about my situation. His situation was that Nimrud, the corrupt king, he was a young boy and he destroyed the idols, and then they set up a fire pit for him and they put him in the manjaniq, in the catapult, and they fired him off towards the fire pit. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to Ibrahim Jibreel alayhi salam, the angel Gabriel. And he asked Ibrahim alayhi salam, Alaka haja, do you have any need, something I can do for you? He said, Amma minka fala. As from you, I don't have any need. But from Allah, I have every need. So he didn't even ask the archangel that was sent to him. And so that's a particular spiritual maqam, right? That may be temporary, that could be more long-lasting. Doesn't mean you don't make dua and supplication, but if you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears you even if you don't ask, and sometimes just the munajah is a way of asking, right? Like some of the prophets who, Yunus in the belly of the whale, he didn't actually ask for Allah to take him out of the belly of the whale. If you look at the Quran, he only said, La ilaha illa ant subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. And then the next verse, فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. The next verse, فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. So he just had an acknowledgement or plea. La ilaha illa ant subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. There's no God but you. Glory to you. I was amongst the people who did wrong, because he left the mi'at alf aw ma yazidun. He left 100,000. He didn't think they would listen to him, and that's when he got on the boat. And then when the boat had hard waves, and they said we have to get rid of one person, and they drew straws, and it came on Yunus ibn Matta alayhi salam, and then he was the one who was tossed into the sea, where the bell fell into the belly of the whale. But then it said فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ, right? But then we answered his plea. Musa alayhi salam, when he said, إِنِّي لِمَا أَنزَلْتُ مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَقِيرٌ, I am in that which you can send down, I am in complete need of it. And that's when he married one of the two girls of Shu'aib from Ahli Madian, and that's when he spent 10 years there, and then he went back to Pharaoh in a different state. So these are atirafat, it's acknowledging that you're in complete need. If you go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a dua and you're demanding, saying, I deserve this, Allah, you should give me this, look at all the prayers I'm doing, and you're still not answering me, what's going on? Why is it not forthcoming? So forth. That's not ubudiyya. Right? You're not in the state of ubudiyya, you're not in the state of servitude as you should be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala huwa al-Rabb wa anta al-Abd. So Allah is the Lord and you are the servant. So the relationship is you ask, and your very act of asking is a gift from your master to you. The fact that you can ask, the fact that you have been inspired to ask, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put within you, that you have the desire to ask, then that's a gift from Allah, and that deserves shukr, that deserves gratitude in and of itself. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So I'm going to stop here.